Hi everyone, welcome back to MUS119. Today we're going to get into Module 4A, and today our topic is Intervals 101. We will be learning how to measure, name, and listen to intervals. So, what is an interval? An interval is the distance between two notes. We measure intervals by counting the number of letter names between the notes, starting from the first note. So, for example, if you hear something like this on the piano, what I'm playing is a C and E. And you could play them together, you could play them one after another. And either way, these are called intervals because there are two notes involved, and we're interested in finding out the distance between these two notes. So, what you do is you take the letter names. So, we start from C, so it's going to be C, and then we have a D in between, and then E. So 1, 2, 3. The distance between them is a third. Okay, we don't say it's a 3, but we say it's a third. But what about the distance between an A and an F? That would be A and F. This interval. Well, same thing. We start counting from A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's a sixth. All right. So if you look at this little um, staff underneath, we have unison, which is the same note. If you play C and then the next C, um, it would be called unison because that's the same note. And then C and D, that's a second. C and E, a third. C and F, a fourth. C and G, a fifth. C and a sixth. C and B, a seventh. And C and the next C, that's an octave. Okay, so intervals can be melodic, notes played one after another. So if I play, that's melodic, but if you hear them together, that's harmonic. Okay, so one thing I would like you to pay attention to is when you look at these intervals, these harmonic intervals, where you see those two notes stacked upon each other, you are going to have to do something called eyeballing. Okay, eyeballing means you just look at it, and based on how it looks, you should be able to tell, what interval it is, or at least something closer, something that will lead you there. So I like to think of, the odd number ones, so unison, third, fifth, and seven. If you look at these, you can see that unison, well, that's the easiest one. It's just the same note, right? You would just write it two times. And the third, the first one is on the line. The second one is also on the line. Okay, so these ones, third, fifth, same thing. You do see that clear gap between them, but it's they're both on the line. And for the seventh, it's the same thing. So if you're reading an interval and you see that both are either space or line, then you can be sure that it's one of those four. It will be unison, third, fifth, seven. Or for the rest, you see that one is a space, the other one is a line, like this one, this one, this one, and the octave. Then you can kind of tell, oh, this is not going to be from those unison, third, fifth, and seventh. Okay, so just be visually attentive, because you can just go from like, okay, the first note is a C. And then from here, you find C, D, E, F. Oh, that's a fourth. You can do that, but sometimes, when you're in a rush, being able to eyeball something is always really helpful. Okay, now we're going to talk about perfect intervals. Perfect intervals include the unison, fourth, fifth, and octave. And these are called perfect because they have a stable, pure sound based on simple mathematical ratios. So unison, of course, you don't really have to explain because if you're playing C and there's another piano also playing C, it's going to be the same frequency, right? So that's as stable as a sound can get. But from C to a fourth up, C and F, and when I play these together, and let me change the sound to strings, it's actually quite calming in a sense. And the same thing with fifth, C and G. It just sounds really pure. Compare this with something that's not so pure like this one. It sounds agitated somehow. But C and G, a fifth, that's 1 and 5. Especially if you play it in a lower range, it just sounds so stable. I can meditate listening to this. And the next one is octave. So C and C. That's an octave. So these intervals were heavily used in medieval and early sacred music, especially by monks and choirs. So in the early Catholic Church, you would hear monks singing like one line of chanting, but then there's another line that's just underneath supporting them. So you would hear things like it has that really mysterious quality to it. Okay, so that's perfect intervals, and these intervals were considered consonant and perfectly in tune even before our modern tuning systems. So as you can see here, like the notes, the unison, the fourth, fifth, and octave. These are perfect intervals. So please, please, please try to remember unison, fourth, fifth, and octave. 1, 4, 5, 8. These are perfect intervals. Now we have major and minor intervals. These apply to seconds, thirds, sixth, and seventh. These emerged more clearly in the Renaissance and Baroque periods when music became more expressive and harmonically rich. A major interval is the larger version, and a minor interval is 1/2 step smaller than its major counterpart. So let's first hear the examples. So a major second would be D, C and D, which would be, that's a major second. A major third, a major sixth, a major seventh. Okay, so we have these ones, and the third point, a major interval, is a larger version. A minor interval is 1/2 step smaller than its major counterpart. So what that means is if we play the major second again, C and D, if we reduce the interval by a 1/2 step, so instead of C and D, if we do C and D flat, creepy. That's a minor second. So major third and minor third just suddenly sounds dark and sad, right? A major sixth, now a minor sixth, and then a major seventh, minor seventh. So each interval has a unique quality. And as we go on and hear more examples, I think you will become more and more familiar with the differences between them. But for now, please remember the second, third, sixth, and seventh, these intervals are going to be major or minor intervals. Okay, these intervals helped composers create tension, emotion, and contrast, especially in major minor tonal systems, which is the system that we use these days. So please remember, there is no such thing as a perfect second, or a perfect third, or perfect sixth, perfect seventh. It just does not exist, okay? And likewise, there is no such thing as a major fourth, minor fourth, major fifth, minor fifth, or major octave. No, it just does not exist at all. So when you're doing your assignments, if I see a P3, I I'll be laughing my head off because you just created a new interval. So please remember, okay, 1, 4, 5, and 8, unison, fourth, fifth, octave. These are perfect intervals, and 2, 3, 6, 7, second, third, sixth, seventh. These are major minor intervals. Really important. Now, just so that you will remember it, I tried to color code it. So perfect intervals P1, P4, P5, P8. These are in that I don't know. I don't know what you call this color. This beautiful greenish bluish color. Uh, and major minor are 2, 3, 6, and 7. Okay, so please, please, please take a screenshot or whatever to remember. And now there are two parts to an interval, and that's a quality part and the distance part. So if you look at the example that you're given here, we have a major third. So M, capital M, uppercase M, this is going to be major. If it's lowercase, then that will be minor. Okay. And then, that's always going to be the first part of the interval. You would start with the quality. So whether it's a perfect interval, major, minor, augmented, or diminished. Okay, we'll get there. And then the later part is the distance. So unison, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are going to be the latter part of your interval writing. Okay, so please remember, we always start with the quality, and then we end with the number, which shows the distance. Now, intervals in a major scale. And what you see right here is, basically the C major laid out for you. But this would work in any major scale, not just restricted to C major. Any scale, any major scale would be the same. So it's the same thing. 1, 4, 5, and 8. These are going to be the perfect intervals, and they will sound like this. The perfect intervals, and then second, third, sixth, and 7. These are going to be the major intervals. So one thing to note is that in a major scale, intervals based on a major scale, there is no minor interval. There's no minor interval intrinsically, but using this as our base, just looking at the perfect and major intervals, we can figure out all the other kinds of intervals, including minor, augmented, and diminished. Okay, so now let's do this one activity, which is to count the half steps in between these two notes in each interval types. So I'm gonna choose the color yellow. So C and C. Well, if you take C on the piano, go to the next, well, not the next C, but the same C. There is no half step in between them, right? So please notice that I am intentionally put in the parenthesis just so that you know if it has a parenthesis, we're talking about the half steps, the number of half steps. So for major second, we have C and D. So C here to D. How many half steps in between? Well, from C to C sharp is 1, C sharp to D is 2. So we have 2 half steps. What about a major third, C to E? A major third is going to be, sorry, I think it just deleted everything. Let me rewrite it. 0, 2. A major third is going to be from C to E. So if you count the half steps in between from C to C sharp, it's 1, and then 2, 3, 4. This is going to be 4 half steps. A perfect fourth, C to F, what is it going to be? It's going to be a 5. There are 5 half steps in between, and you can go and count it. And perfect fifth is going to be 7 half steps. If you don't believe me, well, you can count it from C to C sharp. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that's perfect fifth. So any perfect fifth that you find on the piano, on any instrument basically, it's always going to be 7 half steps in between the two notes. And major 6, C to A, this is going to be 9 half steps. Major 7 is going to be 11. And of course, we have 12 notes, so the last one is going to be 12. I would love you to remember these numbers, these corresponding number of half steps. It will come in extremely handy. So perfect unison has 0 half steps in between. Major second has 2, major third has 4, major perfect fourth has 5, and so on and so forth. Okay, what I like to do is, well, to look at the next um, chart, which is just the same thing we just talked about. We're going to memorize the intervals of, this major scale. And what you see here is on the right side, there's the number of half steps. So 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. And on the left side, we have the perfect and the major intervals. And then with the numbers, the distance, right? Color coded. Okay, so how I try to remember it is that we know, like the left side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which ones are perfect, which ones are major. That's easy. But for memorizing the number of half steps, there are 12 notes. So the very beginning, it's a unison. It's always going to be 0. And the highest one is going to be 12. That's easy to remember. And the numbers in between, I just think these are 2, 4, and then there's a break. So if you follow this pattern, you would think it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, right? But it doesn't work that way. 0, 2, 4, and then there's a break, and we start from 5, 7, 9, 11. So these are all like increasing by 2 half steps, except for, right after 4. So please try to remember this, whichever method you use, it doesn't matter, but you should be able to write this down on a separate piece of paper, right from your brain, okay? No peeking, no cheating. You should be able to write this out. You should know exactly which intervals are perfect, which intervals are major, and then the corresponding number of half steps. These should be super clear. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, please go back a few minutes and see how you would calculate, by counting the half steps on the piano keyboard. So, okay, hopefully this is clear. This chart, we will use it for every single assignment for this week. Now, remember, we talked about how we can use these intervals of a major scale as our base to figure out all the rest of the intervals, like the minor, augmented, diminished. So here, what you see on the left side, this is basically showing you how you can go from a perfect interval and how to change it into something else. So let's take perfect fifth. Okay, so let's see, we have C and G. A perfect fifth. C and G. This is a perfect fifth. Well, the first thing you would do is to write down the distance, which is 5, and then perfect. So from C to G, if we add 1 half step in between these two notes, which means from C, this time we're gonna go to G sharp. From C to G sharp, if we add 1 half step, a perfect interval becomes an augmented interval. So from C to G sharp, this will be called augmented fifth. And likewise, from a perfect fifth, if we go down, or if we reduce the interval by 1 half step, which would now become G flat, this will be called a diminished fifth. So on the left side, what you see here is basically this sliding scale. We always start from, perfect and then major, because this is what we memorize, right? Remember the chart that tells you the 0, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. That's what you're going to use. Okay, so one last thing I forgot to mention is a perfect fifth has 7 half steps. An augmented fifth, because we added 1 half step, it's going to be 8 half steps. And a diminished fifth coming from the perfect fifth is going to be one less half step. So 7 minus 1 is 6. Okay? Um, Now let's look at the next example here, a major 6. And from major 6, which we know that it has 9 half steps, we're going to figure out how to find the other kinds of intervals. So let me just delete all of this. So now we're going to look at major 6. So a major 6 would be 9 half steps. Let's take C, right? So if it says it's a 6 and we pick C as our first note, then from C we have to go up 6, right? So C, D, E, F, G, A, that's 6. So the next one is going to be A, C to A. But let's make sure that we have the correct number of half steps. So major 6 has 9 half steps. So from C, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it is correct. So we have C and A. These two notes, if we play them together, that's a major 6th. So from major 6, let's write this separately here. Major 6, if it has 9 half steps. And now look at this part. Okay, if we add a half step, it's going to be augmented 6. Augmented 6 would be 10 half steps. For major 6, if we reduce it by 1 half step, which would now become 8 half steps, this would be a minor 6. And I'll put this little bar on top just so that visually it's clear. And then for minor 6, if we minus even one more half step, which would now make it 7 half steps in between the two notes, we would have a diminished 6th. Okay, so what you see on the chart on the left, this is the sliding scale. We start from perfect, go up, it's augmented, go down, diminish. From major, go up, that's augmented, go down, minor, go one step down, one more half step down, that's diminished. Okay, so hopefully this is clear. Now let's transfer these into onto the staff. So from C to A, that's a major 6 with 9 half steps. So what about 10 half steps? So from C to A, instead of C to A, if we go to C to A sharp, and notice how I am sticking to A sharp, and A flat, because the number restricts you from using other letter names, right? The number is based on the letter name, so you're tied to the letter name that you start with. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many half steps you add or take away, it still has to be spelled in that same letter name. So C and A, the next one, augmented 6, it's going to be C and A sharp. C and A sharp. Because now we have how many? We have 9 half steps in between them. So what about minor 6? This has to be 8 half steps in between. So starting from that original C here, 8 half steps will be this, right? And now we take A flat. Make sure you don't write G sharp, because then that would make it into a distance of 5, of a fifth. Okay, C to G, whatever kind of G, doesn't matter. If it's a G, that means we're thinking of it as a fifth. So in this case, we have C to A flat, and that is a minor 6th. Okay, so the previous one is an augmented 6th, and the last one is diminished 6th, which has 7 half steps. So from C, 7 half steps up is going to get you to this note. Oh, convenient. C to G. No, we cannot say C to G, because that would make it a perfect fifth. In this case, no, we're still, treating it as a 6th. So C to A double flat. All right, so hopefully that is clear. And then later in the other assignments, you would do the reverse. You would be given, a note, and you would try to add the top note or the bottom note, or you would be given the interval, and you have to figure out what kind of interval it is. So we'll make sure that you're prepared for that. So hopefully this slide is clear for you. Please make sure that you remember from perfect going up is augmented, going down is diminished. There's no perfect and then minor, okay? Minor, major, those don't exist in the perfect system. And for the major, minor, that's its own separate thing. Okay? So I will see you in the next lecture, and take care.